Good evening, gentlemen. We have Tara and Alo today.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the 7th episode of Ask Grit. Today we're just discussing questions that have been asked about investing in Australia. The purpose of this is to add value to our audience by discussing the questions by our clients. My name is Tara and I'm joined by my colleague Alor and Managing Director Navin De Silva.
What have you got, guys?
So we'll just get right into it. One of the main questions that we get a lot from apartment buyers is related to owners corporation fees. They want to know, is there a way around this?
Short answer is unfortunately not. Owners corporation is something you got to pay because each and every building has to have owners corporation to manage the common areas such as the lifts or swimming pools or gymnasiums or whatever the common area. So there's no way around it. But on the flip side, I know it's expensive. It can go from $1,000 to up to $10,000 if there's so much of amenities. But then again, this includes the building insurance as well. So the owners does not have to have separate insurances for the building. But unfortunately, there's no way around it in apartments.
Okay.
I have a question. With the current pandemic going on, is there a fear among buyers that some developers may not be able to complete their projects? And would you foresee any issues about that?
I don't think so. In terms of, the way the Australian system is that as a developer, you got to have your own funds to carry on with the development, which means it can be equity, it can be a bank loan up to a certain percentage, but either one or both has to be in place for someone to start a development.
Yeah.
Which means the risk of not going ahead with the project is very, very slim. At times, there can be a restriction by the banks that you need to achieve a certain sales target for them to come up with funding. But then again, with the current market, I don't see there's any issues in achieving that either. So the short answer is no, I don't see any risk in anything going ahead, not going ahead.
Okay.
Beautiful. So, with Melbourne's rapid growth in population and so on, what are the major projects that are currently happening in Melbourne right now?
Is that specific to apartments, Alo?
So that can be specific to any sort of infrastructures, whether it's apartments or something to do with highways, anything like that.
Yeah, no, in terms of infrastructure, there's 5 main projects which is going on in Melbourne. Number one is the largest project which is coming up is the railway link, where there'll be a railway from the airport to the Melbourne CBD. This is going to be the largest project in the next 10 years. It will be completed in 2031. It's going to be 27 kilometers of railway, which is coming in. It will be going through Sunshine. So again, Sunshine will become a hotspot because of this and all the surrounding suburbs. But this is going to be a game changer. Australian Bureau of Statistics are predicting the travelers are going to double in the next 10 years, and they're catering to the growth. And this will also ease a lot of travel. It's going to be only 20 minutes. It's going to be a huge economic boost, and government is spending billions of dollars on this project. Number two is they're doing North-East Link, where they're connecting Eastern Freeway with the north of Melbourne, which is currently not the case. That's going to ease out a lot of traffic, create a lot of jobs. Again, it'll be a boost to the economy too. Number three would be Westgate Tunnel project. Again, that will be completed in 2022. That's underway at the moment. Again, that's going to be a huge boost for the logistics sector, as well as travel time is going to dramatically increase, especially for people who are living in the West. Then there's also a project, metro rail project in the CBD. There's 5 train stations coming up, starting from North Melbourne up to St Kilda Road, Domain Junction. This is, again, catering towards population growth. This will be completed in 2025. 4 years away, but things are underway. Again, it's going to increase in terms of travel times for most of the people, and also it will reduce travel time, because if you look at St Kilda Road, travel time on a tram takes a long time to get to Domain Junction from Flinders Street. So there's so much of benefits. At the same time, they're also upgrading West M80 or Western Ring Road. Again, that's about a 37-kilometer road. There are certain spots where there's a lot of congestion. They have identified them and they're doing some upgrades. So these are the main 5 major projects, I would say, for the next 1 to 10 years, which will be a big boost to the economy as well as construction as a whole.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So how does the number of levels in an apartment project be determined when looking at something for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. With the apartment building, it really depends on the council and the infrastructure surrounding it. For example, if you look at the CBD, there's apartment buildings up to 82 floors, and the tallest is 108 at the moment. Whereas if you look at a place like close to the beach, you cannot go a certain number of levels.
Yeah.
And most inner city areas, you cannot do a lot of high rises. It has to be minimum of 15, 20. Again, it all depends on the local council. They have a planning guideline in place, and each developer has to abide by them. You cannot go beyond what is being said. So you just have to follow the rules, which is governed by the councils. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But city apartments, you can go very high.
Okay. Speaking of city apartments, for those buyers that want something close to the CBD, which apartment projects is probably best that's within 10 kilometers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good projects in the southeast, north, especially. But in terms of the benefits for the buyers, there is a project in Essendon which will double the government grant right now, which I think will be a huge benefit for especially for first home buyers as well as investors, because the second portion of the grant even can be claimed by an investor. It doesn't have to be a first home buyer. That's about $15,000. So that's a very good incentive. So if you look around the market, that's probably the best offer you get in Essendon. But there's so many projects which we can recommend. It really depends on the requirement of each client.
Okay.
So from an investor's point of view, if they wanted to look at an apartment building, should they invest in something that was off the plan or that's already completed?
That's a good question too. Yeah, off the plan, again, based on the client requirement. If it's an investor, they want a rental income straight away, it has to be a completed apartment, preferably with a tenant, or something you can rent out immediately. Whereas if someone is looking at long term, they want to get their cash flow right, their finance right, if they have the deposit, then again, it makes sense for them to put the deposit down, a 10% deposit, and go for something which will be completed in a year or two. Again, if someone is not sure on their finances, again, it's always best to go something completed. That way they can do a valuation of the property and then go ahead with it or not.
Okay. Again, in relation to off the plan apartments, are there any more Melbourne CBD projects that are coming up in the near future?
Melbourne CBD, I think the latest one is Aspire, which is right on the bank of King Street. That will be completed in 2023, early 2023 or late 2022. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything else coming up. There's simply no land in Melbourne CBD. But I know for a fact that they're planning for a project which is taller than 108 Australia, which will be taller than that, but that is in South Bank. And the other hotspot will be South Melbourne, which will become CBD South, because there's simply no room in the CBD. Melbourne CBD South will be the next course of action, because there's also Melbourne Uni going in that way. So in the CBD itself, I don't think there's going to be anything new. There's simply no land.
Okay.
I have one last question. So what are the advantages and disadvantages for depreciation for an off-the-plan apartment against an established one?
Yeah, so in terms of depreciation, as long as the newer it is, apartment or house, you can depreciate it more. So typically depreciation schedules are done for 20 years or 25 years. The older it is, the amount of depreciation you can claim from your tax is less. So that's another reason some of the investors are going for brand new apartments or off the plan apartments, so that they can claim on the depreciation on the taxes.
Okay.
Another question we have got from Sharma. Question is, what is special in South Melbourne? Yeah, so in terms of specialty, South Melbourne is only 2 to 3 kilometers away from the CBD, about a kilometer away from Crown Casino. And this is where most of the developers are eyeing at the moment. There's a massive project going on there for about 1,000 apartments already. It's not too far away from the CBD, not too far away from the beach, and a University of Melbourne campus is already being planned in the area. So this area is going to definitely boom in the next 10 years. Definitely a place to watch out for. And that's where the lands are available if a developer wants to do a skyrise. So that's the specialty about South Melbourne. It's the future of Melbourne CBD, pretty much. Have you got anything more? There's one more. What are your thoughts on the apartments in Brisbane? Yeah, Brisbane is getting very hot, especially with the pandemic. A lot of people, even from Victoria, has moved down there, and even from the local buyers itself, apartment market is very hot, especially in the school zone of Brisbane. And at the same time, same with Gold Coast. And I mean, it's a tourist destination. In terms of the weather, the beaches, all that adds value. And historically, Gold Coast has been investment destinations even in the 90s by the Japanese. So I think Brisbane, Gold Coast is a definitely good market. Population growth is not as high as Melbourne, but it is definitely a good market, especially for an owner occupier. Okay, there's one more. If an apartment project has over $1,000 apartments, do you think it's going to be too many apartments, and will there be an oversupply? Depends on the location again. If it's a place like South Melbourne, what we were talking about, there will be a demand. If there's a university close by, there will be a demand. Although the students are very scarce at the moment because of the pandemic, once things get back to normal, these residential apartments will be required to house the students as well as the population growth. Whereas if you put 1,000 apartments in a place where there's no demand in terms of infrastructure or other things like medical facilities or hospitals or universities, then there are definitely going to be an oversupply. But even the developers are quite smart about it. They pick the locations well, they do the due diligence. Another example is we have M-City, about 1,000 apartments, but very close to Monash University, surrounded by resort-like facilities. like a swimming pool, tennis court, hotel. So the infrastructure has been built along with the project. So as long as you have all those ingredients, it's not going to be too much. And I think developers are very smart about choosing the right locations and the size of the project. Looks like that's it for today, guys. Anything else?
No, he's answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so again, as Tara said before, the purpose of these sessions is to be very short, sharp, and sweet. Answer some of the most popular questions which we get asked every week by our own team members, and then we would like to share them with the audience so that it adds value to you, and then it might answer some of the questions you might have. Even if you have further questions, we are more than happy to get in touch with you. Please feel free to send in our way through any of our social channels. And until we see you next week, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.